Chris joins us now. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing great, fellas. I'm doing really good. I'm back in New York, and thank God for direct flights out of L.A., so I'm good to go, man. I'm excited.
All right, now, because we're not that bright, we need you to enlighten us. Give us the keys to this series.
Well, I think we're looking at a longer series, so for me, keys are going to be depth out of the starters for the Mets. Bartolo Colon is shown to be a rubber arm, and he can, pitch every day. But ultimately, I think you're gonna need those starters to get you at least 18 outs. On average, perhaps 20, 21. I think exposing the bullpen is something we talked about in the first series. That getting the ball to Familia, you just have a little bit of concern getting those last 12 outs, 9 to 12 outs. So I think it's a key if these young starters can maybe catch a little bit of a breather here and get back everything on normal rest in this round through and get some depth. So I think be more efficient if they can with their pitches, which isn't going to be the easiest thing because the Cubs are a team kind of similar to the Mets where they grind out at bats and they see a good number of pitches per plate appearance. So that's going to be key on that side. I think for the Cubs, you look at just how important it is for their top two guys, John Lester and Jake Arrieta, to be dominant and see what happens after that in their rotation. I kind of look at their rotation a little bit like the Dodgers, similarly that you have two guys you depend on, and then after that you kind of roll the dice. So it's exciting, and it's been a matchup we saw earlier in the season, whereas the young stars on the mound for the Mets and the young stars in position for the Cubs. So it should be electric.
Now, Addison Russell not playing is going to hurt the Cubs, but how much? Because Javier Baez isn't awful by any stretch, so how much of a loss will Russell be to them? There's no telling because it's kind of a short run. A guy can get hot. For example, Ruben Tejada going down, and we know that, Tejada was swinging the bat well in the final month of the season. Obviously, his defense is superior to Wilmer Flores, but you looked at it in a short run, hey, Wilmer Flores could pop one. He could have a couple of big hits, and all of a sudden you're kind of saying, wow, it's good that he got in the lineup. Now, it's not good that Tejada got hurt, but it's good that he got in there. And so I say that to say with Baez, obviously he had the 3-run homer, big homer the other night. He's got ridiculous power. His mind is maybe a little fresher. Addison Russell did a nice job for them defensively at short, but I think offensively just really kind of struggled a bit there. And you have a guy that's in Baez who maybe doesn't really realize exactly what's going on, and he's just going to go out there and play free, or he's a kid that likes the big moments and opportunities. We know this. He's going to strike out quite a bit, and especially against a starting staff like the Mets have. But there's always that risk-reward where maybe he does run into one. So as far as the loss, I think you just look at depth and the options that it gives you, because Joe Maddon is one of those managers where you're going to see him go outside the box and make some substitutions, make a double switch, and there may be guys that are out of position in a game, but it's because he's going for what he thinks is going to work at that time. So not having Addison Russell limits the flexibility in that way.
Talking with Chris Singleton, ESPN baseball analyst. He'll be doing the series with John Shambi, and you can hear it right here starting tomorrow at 8 o'clock on ESPN 98.7. The age-old question, Chris, the Cubs live and die by young people hitting home runs, and the Mets live and die by young pitchers. Does great hitting, is it able to hit home runs against great pitching consistently enough to win a series? Now, we saw that you could do it because Daniel Murphy did it against Kershaw and Greinke, but how likely is that?
I don't think it's as likely. And going into that Dodger series, the last thing you'd have said was, if you were in Vegas, what would the odds be? So, yeah, Daniel Murphy's going to hit 2 home runs off Clayton Kershaw, and he's going to have 3 in the series. You can't really
as our buddy John Sterling says, you can't predict baseball, right?
Susan.
Where's Susan? Yeah, Susan. So, I would say, here's my thing with the Mets, just because of, you're talking velocity is so strong. I mean, guys, their average fastball on the starters are, 95, 96, and, rushing it up there, as we saw Syndergaard last night, is, he maxed out there at 100 or whatever it was. But I think it's more difficult when you have that kind of velocity that the Mets starters have. And when you looked at, whether Zach Greinke or Clayton Kershaw, they're not averaging the same type of velocity that DeGrom or Harvey or Syndergaard are consistently. So I think that's neutralized a little bit. But again, they're a young team, and the Cubs are on, they're high right now, and they believe. And I think the Mets as well. They believe in the balance that they have and what they're able to do. I think that this round should be better for David Wright to kind of get going and get hot, and Lucas Duda as well. So I mean, it's going to be a great series. I really think so. And I would give the edge to the bullpen for the Cubs, just as far as having a little more length and depth back there over the Mets. But we'll see how it plays out.
Now, Chris, I want to tell you exactly what's going on. Don and I are going to be doing the show from Chicago, and on Wednesday, we'll be doing it across the street from Wrigley Field at the Cubby Bear. So my devious plan, Chris, is to get Shambi to come over before the game to do a guest spot.
Yes, you can come.
Right, you can come, but then I'm going to lather him up with liquor, get him loaded, and then you and I do the game.
Is that an easy thing to do?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think you're going to be able to accomplish that. If you ask them to come do post-game, then I think you'd have a really good chance of that happening. But, Ginger takes his job seriously. And he, and there's a chance as well. He might have a Sports Center hit that day, so you might see him in a coat and tie as well.
Man.
Tricking everybody. So, you won't be able to you won't be able to accomplish that pregame.
And you guys are really good together. They do a fabulous job calling the game. I'm so glad you're on this series.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We, this is what we wanted. In September, as we kind of started to formulate and start putting in our requests and petitions to Chief John Martin, and Boog asked me, what series do you want to do? And I said, man, I would love to do Mets. I'd love to do, Cubs or one of those two teams. I didn't want to do St. Louis. I had enough of them over the year, and with all due respect, and there wasn't really anything that interested me in the American League side. So we got this. There was a little bit of and maybe Boog will tell you, there was a little bit of controversy. It ended up being a practical joke that Dan Shulman tried to play on us about midway through the division series, because they are on the American League, Booney and Shulman are. And so when it looked like Toronto was going to be knocked out after they lost their first two, and Danny and those guys were going to go to the ALCS, and for Danny being from Toronto, it was a perfect storm. Everything, it was great. And when it looked like they're going to be knocked out, they got us. They pulled a little practical joke, and it started circulating within that we were going to have to go do the ALCS, and Shulman was going to get the NLCS.
And what made it real, Chris, is that Shulman could Bigfoot anybody he wants because he's the big star.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So here we are, and everything's running downhill, and we're just trying to kind of, steer clear of it. But we hated Dan Shulman for about maybe 2 days until we found out it was a joke.
Hate is healthy. Don't worry about it. Anyway, hopefully we'll run into you at one of the ballparks.
Okay.
That'd be good.
Look forward to it, guys.
Thank you, Chris.